Society فما برشا عباد très talentueux qui se sont joints à ce think tank. Ahmed Zitouni qui sera un de nos speakers en fait في Radio Diaspora Tunisia, il est AI Engineer and Director في Google. Fama Hichem Selemi aussi, avec qui il était dans un webinaire précédemment avec nous sur tout ce qui est entrepreneuriat. Et il a cofondé une grande entreprise avec une levée de fonds de 400 millions de dollars. Anna Zed, le professeur Ali Gelmezi, qui a participé à un des webinaires précédents sur tout ce qui est health, spécialement avec des brillants speakers, etc. Ou Tawa Lyouma, en fait, on est heureux d'adresser le sujet. Generative AI, je pense aujourd'hui, et clairement, de par les invitations en tant que speaker, c'est the most hyped topic in the world. Generative AI, et spécialement, on va essayer de le prendre avec une vision un peu plus hélicoptère, de différentes perspectives. Avec les speakers internes aujourd'hui, les brilliant guests, et les des AI practitioners. Je avec grand plaisir déjà. Merci beaucoup d'avoir accepté l'invitation et de contribuer. Donc, je ladies first. Dr. Asma Ben Abacha, senior scientist at Microsoft et former staff scientist at the National Institute of Health. مرحبا بك أسماء.
Merci, مرحبا للكل.
Alors, Rim Helaoui, directeur of Data and AI Innovation at Philips في البيبا. أهلا بك مريم.
وبكم يعيشكم مرحبا بكم الكل وميرسي على l'organisation. Je suis très contente de تشوفوا en fin de compte وصلت الحكايه وحققناها ومرحبا بكم encore une fois.
Merci. Alors, عندنا Amine Ben Khelifa, senior engineer at Adobe في San Francisco et former senior computer engineer at Apple. مرحبا بك أمين.
بك أكثر عايشك. Happy to be here.
C'est un plaisir. Hassen Dhrif, okay, the one and only Hassen Dhrif, principal scientist and senior manager at Amazon في Seattle و former research associate at Vail Cornell Medicine وعملت هكا ابريفياسيون هكا بالبايو كبيره ياسر فهمتني دونك باش تحكي لنا برشا على برشا حاجات. مرحبا بك حسن.
Thank you Lobna for the invite and happy to be here.
مرحبا بكم. En tout cas aujourd'hui باش نحكيو على Generative AI. سويتشيت على ياسر بالتونسي داكوردو مي n'hésitez pas en fait donc نصور معناتها حتى سبيتش بالانجلي مي جو بونس باش نحكيو بالتونسي دونك n'hésitez pas تحبوا تجاوبوا كيما قلت انا باي بالانجلي بالفرنسي بالتونسي. دونك احنا باش ندخلوا في السوجي Generative AI the new source of creation وفي التيتر pas ma provocation là باش نحكيو عليه dans différentes perspectives باش نشوفوا est-ce que vraiment c'est une source de création, est-ce que c'est de la créativité, est-ce que c'est autre chose. L'idée نحيو شويه الميت وندخلوا في الرياليتي. هذا لوبجيكتيف نتاع الويبينار نتاع اليوم الايفينمون هذايا sachant que اذا حاجتكم اكثر ماتيريال n'hésitez pas تلقاو ماتيريال في عند لي كونت نتاع لي سبيكر نتاعنا ولا لي كونت نتاعي sinon dans des articles que j'ai écrits في New African, Forbes ou Web Manager Center. Don't hesitate معناتها تلقاو برشا ماتيريال و n'hésitez pas de poser vos questions. الكيستيون الاولى التوبيك الاولاني اليوم اللي هو Generative AI and overview on the global landscape. والإيدي نتاع الكيستيون هذه باش نعرفوا شويه وين احنا تو في العالم. اسكو فما فريمون برشا انفستيسمون، اسكو فما برشا ريفوني. باش نبسط المعلومه معناتها الكيستيون للناس الكل نعرف لي جاست معناتها يجموا نحكيو فيها سويه على الحكايه ده كله. ليدي سي نعملوا تور دو تابل وكل واحد يعطينا البوينت اوف فيو البيرسبشن نتاعو سور سو توبيك لا ا بو بري معناتها وندوروا معناتها ابري اون شونج دور. دونك كي نجم نبدا باش نبدا باسماء ومن بعديك اون سويتش كي العاده في لي ويبينار.
And I will switch to English, it's easier.
Okay.
But I can answer any questions in French or Tunisian. So to start, generative AI has changed, I think, many fields recently. It's not new. So we had in the last decade, we saw generative AI with GANs, for example. There was very successful in image processing and in computer vision. Text generation, though, was not very successful until recently with ChatGPT, which is, I think, the fastest apps of all times, and everyone, I think, heard about it. And it's actually had 100 million users in only 2 months, which is, I think, amazing to see this success. It generates high quality answers. And I have a PhD in question answering, so I have been working also in question answering for 10+ years now. So I know that I was also impressed by the quality of the answers and responses generated by ChatGPT and the newest version, so GPT-4, for instance. After that, we saw many new models from other competitors. We saw Llama from Meta, for example. We saw also Bard from Google. Startups such as OpenAI, who created ChatGPT, and other startups raised, I think, around $1.7 billion. And we saw new startups focusing on how to use this in new generative AI models and specific applications, and how can we personalize or customize these models to for new applications in different fields, such as healthcare or education or other applications. So, yeah, this is a short summary of what we had recently.
N'hésitez pas en fait, hein, مش أنا نقول لكم معناتها dans quel ordre اللي يحب معناتها jump on the discussions, don't hesitate. ريم ايش قولك أنت معناتها في اللاندسكيب اليوم في generative AI؟
I totally agree with Asma, and I think she explained very well why there is a hype about generative AI now, because at the end, generative AI is not new. We've seen all progressive evolution, if you will, up to what we see now. But I think there is also a confusion / interchangeable reference to generative AI versus foundation models. Now, of course, foundation models are the source of this new spark, if you will. But generative AI, as it is, it has been there for a while. So maybe let's make a bit distinction. So, and then when we look at foundation models, whether we're talking about ChatGPT or image-based foundation model or any modality of data, I think that's one of the big changes now that we should focus on in terms of what it means for us or for the domains we want to discuss. One quick follow-up on what she said. She mentioned ChatGPT, and I think ChatGPT, looking at it from a healthcare perspective, it reached the layman person, right? So people that probably have never really trusted AI or never really believed in AI, because we know AI has been through up and downs since the beginning, and suddenly there is a kind of an acceptance, even from those that were really resistant, and I'm referring to healthcare now specifically. So they're starting to cooperate, they start to trust somehow, or be open, let me put it like this. They're starting to be open to AI to support them. And for us, and assume also for Asma or anyone else in the healthcare domain, that's a game changer. So that's why everyone is panicking almost. Where are we going to make a difference? And I can see it everywhere. So.
And I think we will go much more on details about the impact of generative AI, especially if it's already developed or not, in which sector, etc. later. حسن, Amine, شنو رايكم في الكيستيون؟ شنو اللاندسكيب؟ شنو الفيزيون بتاعكم là-dessus en ce moment?
Amine, you want to go first? Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think generative AI brought to the market a new paradigm of programming. It's called prompt engineering, and this is quite a change. People are asking every technological breakthrough, we ask the same question. What is it left for us to do? This thing will take over our jobs, and we'll be just like left behind. I don't think so. This question has been since C language came out to replace assembly language back in the days. So prompt engineering makes it very easy to anyone to write a prompt, and the prompt is pretty much what you ask ChatGPT, right? And the way you ask it. But like any quality coding or programming, you need to think about it. You need to write the prompt. So it's easy to access, but it's not easy to make the right prompt, to write the, and then, so there is a lot of design, there is a lot of data engineering, there is a lot of problem definition. There is, all this, what makes a solution or makes a project are still there. So for all the scientists in this room, don't worry, your jobs are not being, replaced soon.
Amine.
Yeah, I want to add to that. I think all these points are like really great, and especially what Asma said, this technology is not new. So as everyone I think here knows, it's been there for quite a while. But what we figured out recently is like we made it work on text. And what's interesting about text is a lot of problems you can describe with text. Like before, like we had these amazing models that can work at pixel level or 3D or any other signal, and you need like a specialized model for each of the data modality that you had. But all of a sudden, when you figure out how to do Gen AI or like even pattern recognition, better pattern recognition on text, it unlocked a lot of things because people said like, wait a second, I don't need only text, I can tokenize anything. Like so, GPT-4 is a multimodal network where it accepts images. I'm not sure if that feature is available publicly, but it can accept an image. It's been shown in the demo. And then those images are also tokenized. So basically, if you take anything and tokenize, and GPT can reason about it, then you have like, a new paradigm, as Hassen said, that enables you to do detection or all the application that machine learning is typically great at. But now you have the advantage of describing your problem in terms of these words, tokens. And so now talking about like hype versus like what's hype, what's like really is there to stay, it's like any other technology. So it will replace like a big chunk of the pipeline, especially if your pipeline relied on like, handcrafted heuristics that GPT can do an okay job at, they will be replaced. I think now I work at Adobe, so we do a lot of creative work.
Yeah.
So, you can look at these models as database of knowledge or like knowledge graphs, encoded a lot of knowledge. And so, and then the biggest issue that people see are these models like hallucinate or they create like not realistic facts. And that's great for creativity. So you want something that hallucinates to be creative. Like if it was like really to the point, it would be boring and then it will not generate all these creative solutions. So I think technically, and we can deep dive on this later, is like extrapolation and interpolation. So if you have like a couple of data points, you want to create something in between, it will create something in between. If you have like an unknown concept that you want to expand to it, like probably it can extrapolate as well. Yeah.
En fait, Amine, ça tombe bien parce que je voulais passer, tu as commencé à faire la transition sur la question, le topic 2 اللي هو نحب ندخلوا شوية أكثر في التوبيك باش نحكيو عليه شوية تكنيكمون نحكي شوية على الأقل فهمت باش نفولغاريزيو un petit peu الكونيسانس. Generative AI, let's dig into, right? Is it a creative intelligence firstly? So I want an answer. I want to have an answer yes or no. Firstly, from everyone, it's very important to have your point of view on that. And the second part of the question, part 2, is how it works concretely and technically. So Amine, start talking a little bit. If you can jump on, and then we will move to
yes.
Hassen and so on.
Yeah, yes and no. So creative, yes. Intelligence, probably no.
Okay. Okay, I mean, please, just 1 minute. I want to have the answer of everyone, and then we. So, then the answer to the question.
I think your question is generative AI AGI or not? Is it like general intelligence or not? I like what Hinton said about this question, when he said, let's stop asking this question and take this as a second form of intelligence. It's different from the biological intelligence that we have. It's a digital intelligence. So they are incomparable. And it has its own form of intelligence. So I like that answer better than endlessly comparing to biological and the limits of biological intelligence.
Okay, I love the answer. Now the question, come on, is it a creative intelligence? So is it a creative intelligence? I'm not saying is it a human intelligence or is it similar to a human intelligence? Is it a creative intelligence?
I mean, it is creative for sure. So the short answer is yes. You know, the long answer, you know, it's more than that. But let's stick with yes, because I know you want a binary question, a binary answer. So yeah, yes.
And I know it's not unfair to have everybody answer in this context, right? But we will come back to that, and everyone will explain for sure his point of view, because even if everyone asks me this question, I will not answer yes or no. But it was just in order to see your perceptions. Asma and Rim.
Yeah, I think I agree that the short answer could be yes, because but it's the longer answer is it depends first of our definition of creative. So for example, if a creative artist uses some of the other works to get inspired, does it mean he was 100% creative? So what generative AI does, it's actually, I think, provides an interesting and a new form of perspective on our collective intelligence. So what it does, it uses everything that we wrote and published and, you know, provided, and then it learned from it and provided something new. But it's actually similar, or somehow similar to what we as human provided and published and created.
Well said. And Rim?
I cannot afford to say it's not creative. So by then, if it's binary, then it's creative. And in that sense, I think that's why, by the way, you see this whole discussion on IP, right? So that's the source of confusion there, for instance. But I'd like to join Asma in the sense that, and also, and I like this perspective as well. Before I give the word to Amine, sorry, we interrupted you. I mean, you were supposed to give us a bit more explanation, but just to follow up on that, I think the sparring element in all this is the jump in representation learning, right? So the learning, how the computer, the machine represents the knowledge. And of course, we've been trying to, I mean, in AI, we know there are two big schools, right? One symbolic, one sub-symbolic, and they've been competing a bit. Should we follow how we reason symbolically and try to teach the computer that way? Or should we leave the computer to find their own way, figure it out, basically, and still end up at the end, come up with a certain representation of knowledge? I think that makes it a bit different, less human readable or understandable. That's why we call them black boxes, coming back to deep learning as a source of all this intelligence. But that would not mean that we cannot call it intelligence or creative intelligence. So that would be an overstretch for me.
Great. So Amine, I'm coming back to you. How it works concretely and technically, a little bit, if you can break it down to everyone.
Yeah, I think this topic is not easy to explain even by top scientists, as you know, and then without slides is even harder. So hopefully, like, everyone can get what I'm saying here. So I think let me stick to large language models, LLMs, because the other models like diffusion are for generating images, and maybe that's not what's considered intelligence these days. Like basically LLMs, so are these large transformers network that get trained on.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
We can mute the audience, that would be great. Yeah.
S'il vous plaît, en fait, si vous pouvez mettre mute sur vos micros, ça serait sympathique. Sinon, Semi, est-ce que tu peux intervenir? Let's continue. مش أول مرة تصير لنا.
Yeah, for the webinar, maybe there is a feature to mute the audience, so that would be better, so that no one accidentally opened their mic. Yeah, so I was saying, like, so it's like a very large networks, like GPT-4 is, people say, a trillion parameter, and some folks also have confirmed this. So they get trained on like a huge amount of data sets. So this is like this step called pre-training. So basically they generate like a model that is capable of just generating the next token. So if you add like certain text, it will just continue to the next character, next word, or whatever, how you tokenize. And then after that, like how we got from these like GPT models to ChatGPT type of models, there is like a pipeline that required like a lot of sophisticated tuning that probably no one is able to do as good as OpenAI these days, or like Google's, or like people with a lot of resources and experience. And so what you typically do is just continue to tune these models. So you take this pre-trained model and you start gradually basically teaching it to follow instructions. And so you generate like a lot of instructions with different templates. In my creative work, for example, I would say like, oh, generate an Instagram story about like travel or summer, and then describe what this Instagram story text should be. And then the continuation is maybe summer vibes 2023 or something. So just giving you a glimpse of summer now, just starting. And so, so this is instruct tuning. So you can use these models. So it's like the DaVinci type models by OpenAI and other Llama models, people have instruct tuned as well. And then after the step, what people do is usually is like they continue training reward models to make these models more aligned with humans. And that's like the RLHF type of training that happens, reinforcement learning with the human feedback. So this is the step that takes like a regular model, like a GPT, and make it a chat GPT. And so at the end, like these models are aligned to, or like kind of aligns to generate questions, answers that are really appreciated by humans, and they look more intelligent. So that's typically the pipeline. So it's super expensive to do the first step, and it's easier to do the later steps. And so with open source model like the Falcon 40B, 7B, or the Llama non-commercial models, people have seen a lot of success the tuning these like for different use cases. And again, so I want to go back to this point of depends on the use case. If your case like if your use case like can be described in a problem where you can chat with the system or like index certain documents and ask questions about them, this is a great solution. If your problem does not fit into this, it's like just using a hammer for the job. So it's like, don't use the hammer for every possible problem you have. So yeah, I'll stop here.
Only if you can afford it. I'm joking.
Oh, yes.
But again, I agree with, actually, the point is generative AI, as you said, it already exists for a long time. Actually, it's not from November 2022 when ChatGPT came, right? But I think what's make it more, let's say, accelerated, it's much more what you are explaining, Amine, that now these models are open source now. So everyone, all startups, company, and so on are using it. And this is why we will ask the question later about what are the businesses that are really developing or let's say using and exploiting this generative AI, and in which aspect? Is it text, audio? Is it other aspects? So just Rim, yes, Rim, you want to say something?
Now, I think this is an excellent next point to discuss. As I mentioned, I think indeed foundation models are a game changer. I think that's what you're saying in different words, but I don't fully agree with the fact that this jump was due to the fact that they've been made public, because I know, for example, Microsoft at a certain moment, they had that G5 model, which was not public, of course, but there were, I think the difference, and that's my own opinion here, the difference that ChatGPT brought to the table that made it so popular was that the new human in the loop instruct version of generative models. And that instruct version of generative models, talking about language now, made it so intuitive to interact with it. So it sounded like you're almost talking or chatting with a human being, and that's how it reached the layman person in such a short time, right? So I think that's one of the game changers.
I think we have a lot of question interaction from the audience, and even some of them are asking questions, the others are answering, which is amazing, right? I want just to jump to the topic 3, and once we come to the topic 3 and the guest, don't hesitate if you want to talk about some elements from topic 2, explain much more on your perspective, wherever, feel free, please. So just topic 3, it's about generative AI, how sectors are embracing it for their businesses. And the question is much more, it's about the use cases. Let's say it concretely. What are the different use cases today from different sectors, whether it's health, education, banking, insurance, or other industry, right? So where exactly is today development? And is it truly developed? Or is it just experimentation? So
Asma is working on use cases.
Yeah. Now, I think if Hassen, you can take it and then we will make a round table in the other sense.
Sure. Just like an anecdote, I like to use it. I use it once when asked about like how is these large language model different from classical models, and I always like use this intuition. If your son or your daughter goes to school and they learn only one course, they only take one course, math, and then when they come back at the end of the day, and you can predict with 1%, with 100% accuracy what they will be talking about. They will be talking about math. So that's all they learned, right? When they go to school and they learn math, physics, philosophy, and everything else, history. When they come back, well, first of all, you can never predict what they will be talking about, right? And second is they can create new like new topics to talk about that you never thought about. And third, they can hallucinate. They can say things that are completely unrealistic, right? So now coming back to how we use this technology in real space and real application, and that's kind of like part of my job right now. Right now, for instance, we are using this technology to predict like the next trends in economic trends, where businesses are heading in the future. If I'm an investor, where should I put my money? Is this technology just like a pass-through, or is it something that will be sustainable? We like few years ago, everybody was talking about blockchain and cryptocurrency, and we are not talking about them anymore that much. So are we still going to talk about generative AI in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years from now? Or is it going to be just, something that's going to be just of the moment? What are the companies that are making really a difference there? And if you create a new product today using LLMs, is it going to be different from these plugins that are, like OpenAI are promising to, to invade the market with plugins that everywhere? How are you, make yourself different from anything that these monsters, that's huge companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook can do, right? So, so that's kind of like all the questions. If I'm into this application, there are a lot of like, and I want to make money, I need to ask all these questions. If I'm in the research or academia, I think the sky is the limit. I mean, there are plenty of applications where you can use generative intelligence or generative AI.
Guys, it's very complex to me to moderate it without jumping on every answer that you offer to the audience, but I will not do it. Okay, so Amine, probably you want to say something here.
Yeah, I think I what Hassen said. So it's really like hard to see now. We're still inside like this like big bubble of like hype. It's like been deflating a little bit lately, last month or so, since everyone is like got access to these things and they tried them for the different use cases they thought they can make happen. But I think one big thing is like that still remains. So if you are a startup or a company or like even a big business, like if you're not solving a real user problem, then you'll like face issues deploying this solution. So again, so basically be attached to the problem, not to the solution. So once you work on a user problem, evaluate all the solution you can have. And maybe LLMs like offer you unlocks new things that were not possible before. For example, like in creative photo editing we use at work, before like probably it was not easy to chat with a photo and then say, oh, make the sky darker, or like, make the, I don't know, like colors brighter. But now that's a new unlock, that's possible. So that may be a new feature, but still solve the same user problem. Like users still want to edit their photos and do creative work. But this is just an assistive technology. Same thing like for search and retrieval. Like, so if you have like a big database of PDFs or documents somewhere on Google Drive, before you had to use like keyword search or maybe embedding based search to get approximately what you're looking for. Now you can directly ask a question. So it unlocks new opportunities for search and retrieval, but still the user problem is like to search for information. Answers are going to be better, hopefully. And then that's where this technology will find, like, I think the best, I think we'll see the best uprise or upside for deployment. One more thing is like, so competing against big companies that are already building these things. So I think there is like a huge opportunity if you know a niche, and you know, before you had to work months to come up with like an AI algorithm. Now you can write it in a prompt, so you can go ahead and then test the market, see if that helps. And this is, I think, also a great unlock for the startups.
Okay. Asma.
So I can give some examples. So in healthcare, for example, one of the application is using generative AI to generate clinical notes based on the conversations between the doctors and their patients. So if instead of the doctors or medical professionals having to write the notes from scratch, so a model generates those notes, and then the doctor just have to edit them and validate them. And that save a lot of time and will allow the doctor to focus more with their patients and provide better services. This is one of the applications. In healthcare in general, I think, and in other domains, we'll see more applications. From the development perspective, generative AI in general will allow creating more synthetic data. I think for many applications, having enough training data is one of the main challenges. So being able to create synthetically more training data will have a lot of advantage and impact on the performance of many models and applications. In terms of services, so we saw, for example, with Microsoft, the launch of Microsoft 365 Copilot, which allows using, so it combines both large language models with Microsoft 365 apps that we all use daily, such as Word, Excel, Teams, Outlook, and it's very interesting because I think it's a great productivity tool. It will allow summarizing, for example, meeting notes. It allows analyzing data from Excel spreadsheets. And these, I think, this kind of services and application, we saw them, and also the high quality, I think, will have a big impact on different, I think, users and applications.
Yeah,
Over to you.
Yeah, I fully agree with what I've heard, indeed. And just to elaborate a bit more on what Asma has been explaining, indeed, the applications you have a big palette of that, but if I look from the angle of healthcare, and I think the low stakes applications are, like Asma just mentioned, around the documentation, for example, anything that basically automates the repetitive tasks of a clinician, for instance, in general. But documentation is on top of those, that you can think of any interaction with documents, and that's beyond healthcare. Like, we have now more natural language interfaces to gather in the right information from there, cross modalities in an interactive way. And you have also the synthetic data generation, which is of course crucial as we were trying to democratize healthcare data. It's been always a problem. So if this synthetic data is realistic enough, and of a high quality, which is a big challenge, of course, then it's one of the most appealing and also applications. There are more, let's say, ambitious applications, but we all know for the healthcare sector specifically, you have crazy regulations in there, which makes sense. But that makes, of course, the whole application domain a bit more challenging. And if I would step back and then think of the cloud vendors like Microsoft and AWS, as I have my peers here in the call, for customers, like Philips as an example of those cloud vendors, one of the questions that is now emerging, because whether we want it or not, I expect foundation models to become more and more of a commodity. And then the point would be, what can I build on top of it, right? What's the use case? Becoming more and more in the heart of the whole discussion. But then how do I choose the right foundation model? That's now the emerging question. If I am just evaluating different options or different services or different vendors, how do I choose the right one? What data do I need to choose to evaluate and choose the right one? Because let me say it, those giants, they don't always have the benchmarking results that would allow you just off the shelf to just say, okay, for this particular task, they're willing to support, of course, as a service, but then that's something you have to do it yourself. So long story short, I think when it comes to the application, one of the key challenges for customers, not the providers of those foundation models, is how do I do the right choice?
Mm. I think it's very good points, but again, probably it's the same thing then when we address any topics around AI in general, not generative AI. It depends of the use case. It depends of what why we are doing that. Do we need that? Is it aligned to the company, the strategy of the company? Is it useful? Do we have the right models? Which models? Are we able to do a benchmark? Yes or no? The questions still remain the same, I think. But probably generative AI, because it's still new a little bit. Let's say for some company, not for the big techs, okay? For some company, that's why I think they ask much more question on that. They need more time in order to start using it out of experimentation. I think they are using it as experimentation for some use cases today, and this is the fact, but probably not pushing it on productions and using it at scale. And this is what I see in multiple company. So, but again, it doesn't mean everyone is same, right? Every company is unique. And again, that's why we have tech company, speakers from tech company here to hear all the perspectives, right, guys? I will make a pause and take some questions to be fair with the audience. One of the questions that resonate on me is how to control hallucination. And what about trustworthy generative AI? So up to you, who wants to jump on and answer this question?
I can take a stab at that. I saw a very interesting question. I think it came from T. Melet, Marakshi. Donc, it's about the intellectual property also.
Yes, I have it in mind to ask it as well.
Okay. So hallucination, it's an issue. One of the solutions we are addressing this is by combining retrieval with generative. You know that in large language models there are two classes of large language models: the auto-generative and the auto-regression. The auto-encoding. So we use auto-encoding to select where the LLM should focus. And then you have a parameter which is called the heat parameter, where you can, or the temperature parameter, you can use that for addressing how much hallucination you accept in your model, right? So you can control that factor. So that's one about the security or the confidentiality of your data. That's something really you should care about before you take into consideration these models. Like for instance, many companies don't give you a choice. Like what Rim said about, I don't want to cite examples, but when you go online into these cloud companies, sometimes they don't give you a choice. You need to sign off on having them using your own data for training and retraining their models, right? So that's kind of like you either you play the game or not, right? So and the third question about the property, the intellectual property. I mean, a few weeks ago there was an incident. I'm not sure. I don't know if everybody was following the news. There was a strike from writers in Hollywood. And Hollywood writers stopped, they were, not happy. And one of the reasons where they were not happy about is, of course, the pay and the conditions and all of that. But one of the major reasons is generative AI. Because when you are a screenwriter, you are a script and you write your script and the director is not happy about your script. Usually previously, they just ask you, go and fix this, add this, do this, and you change it and you come back and with a new script, right? But right now, they just take your script and they feed it to a generative AI model, and they get a completely new script. But that new script was based on the errors you made in your script. So how much property are you sharing with that new script? That's what these writers are concerned about. And what are the limits of the intellectual property? And this is a hotly debated topic here in the States. And I'm not sure if we have an answer to that. There is a lot of government discussions right now to involve the government in this in regulation and all of that. So it's to be followed.
Just to share with all of you, like people are even having fun about generative AI in the chat. So you have an advice, Rim, choose the provider who created the transformer. And another one who said, just tune the temperature parameters. So I think a lot of information is going in these discussions. Amazing. I have another question probably as well about what is the impact or the added value for our country, Tunisia, but let me just take it as it is. Marakshi, en fait, the question is, new divide is emerging between the north and the south with AI and especially generative AI. How can we deal with that and take advantage of the Tunisian position? Now, on s'élève un petit peu là. So who wanna give a perception on that? Just a point of view. It's not an easy topics as well to address, I think. If you wanna take on that. For me, someone want to jump? Asma?
Yeah, I have, I think, different things to say to all these questions, many interesting questions. Maybe I will start with, because I think Rim said interesting thing related to how to select the models and how to evaluate them. So I wanted just to highlight and say that's very interesting, I think, aspect. And it's true, it has been always a problem how to evaluate these models, but now we have new challenges. One of them is hallucination in large language models. And just to answer that very quickly, there are several techniques related to, so it could be prompt engineering techniques, chain of thoughts is one of them. It could be also related to the evaluation metrics that we use, so develop metrics specific to hallucination. Yeah, some of the comments were related to the temperature. So several parameters can be also updated and changed to reduce the hallucinations. Now the next question, which is related how to use this. I think this is, for me personally, I think this is a great time for someone who maybe is really interested to work on AI and generative AI. This is really the right time to start and to work on having the skills and knowledge that are needed to create a new product, services, and shape the future of generative AI in Tunisia, for example. So I see that as, and it's for all areas. It's not specific to, I don't know, healthcare only or education only, or I think we can see it everywhere, and we can see different needs that can, developers and people in Tunisia can work on providing services for that. I would say also maybe data creation, another aspect. We saw some companies especially in, I think, OpenAI uses and works with a company that's in Africa to create some of the data that's used to fine-tune the models. So that's, I think, something, another possibility to work also on creating data to fine-tune and customize this model to specific application. But I would say it's not limited to one sector in one area, or it's really can be adapted and used and can be beneficial everywhere.
Yeah, fully agree. And we have another question: how evaluate the performance of a generative AI model?
So let me jump on that. So basically, I think it's hard to evaluate exactly the underlying model if you don't control the end-to-end pipeline, which data went into training and all these things. But what you can do is like evaluate the outcomes and the outputs. If you're building an application with this open foundational model, You can measure if you are deploying to users, you can A/B test or do some of the user testing techniques, or you can create like a sample set that you know the answers for, and then use it to measure the end-to-end system, like to evaluate your prompt and what the system is generating, and then also the other post-processing that you do. Which 1 minute, like I want to add to what the other speaker said about like hallucination. So there is another technique that is emerging called constrained decoding, where you can decode the answers in the target domain that you're looking for. Like if you want the model to only produce valid JSON in a given application, then you can constrain the decoding to just emit like valid JSON tokens. And this is very important for sectors where they are thinking of deploying like a chat model for customer support. Like you don't want someone to come and inject or like, I don't know what's the exact attack called, but like basically make the model spit out like different things or like override some of the operations the model can do. So that's very dangerous. So this layer of verification is needed on top of all these models. Yeah.
Right.
The third question you asked about like how to leverage this in Tunisia,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think, so there are couple of ways this can be leveraged. So it can be leveraged as a user. So if you are an engineer or software engineer, you can become a 2x or a 10x engineer overnight by just leveraging these models for coding. So it does not have to, if you want to generate like the boilerplate or something, it does not have to take you very long. You can use GPT to generate these things. And the other thing is like by offering services that are cheaper to build, and then also like add a lot of value add, like these verification services, maybe data labeling services, and also some emerging application. ChatGPT maybe is not that great at Arabic or like other like dialects that we have. So maybe we need to create our own.
So valuable. Rim, j'adore. Rim, over to you.
Thanks. I'd like to put my other hat now, be part of the audience and really ask the question again on the evaluation. I think Amine mentioned a few things, and I'd like to take it one step further in the sense of, and I agree with you partially, Lobna, when you say, yeah, the same challenge has existed for a while, but I also like to challenge that because, generative AI comes in with new, yes, it's bringing in additional
new capability.
Fusions. Yeah, exactly. But so simple question. Of course, I agree with you. You would need to look at it end to end. So I don't know. You have a certain problem in mind. You're trying to solve it, and you are going just to have whatever annotated data you have in your mind, and then you're going to see how well it works, right? Just in a simplistic view. Now, how would you go about the selection of that data? What are the requirements of that data? Because you have no clue. So usually the way how we used to do that in machine learning, of course, is that somehow a bit what data has been used for the training, and you try to come up with a representative set or whatever, a bit what landscape looks like. Now, of course, this is different because foundation models are supposed to be good in multitasks, right? And then you need to check it for a specific new thing that's probably for none of those tasks on which it has been fine-tuned or learned. So my question here becomes, how do we come to proper guidelines on the size, the distribution, all the requirements basically on the data you need to use to reach a certain level of confidence, and you can assume that the output or the results will be generalizable once you deploy it in real life, right?
I have a question from Helmi, but I will take it as it is. And if someone needs more explanation on that or clarification, don't hesitate. Can generative AI lead to data leak if it is not controlled properly inside the company?
But that's a different topic, I think. That's more in terms of protecting your data and property, whatever it's IP or data, whatever it is. I think we can touch up on this. I think it's an important one indeed, but I'm very curious to hear the audience, or at least the panel, the participants on the evaluation part, if you have any views on that.
I think about the question, Rim, are you asking about like about the evaluation, evaluation perspective? I think my quick reply to evaluation is not about evaluating. I mean, of course, you can always evaluate. We have technical ways of to evaluate the model itself, and that starts with all these, you know, fine tuning and all these, you know, what we call it usually in machine learning, we call it offline evaluation, and which means evaluating the model itself. But that's kind of like a technical issue. From the business perspective, I think the evaluation, we call it also the offline evaluation. It's about evaluation the business impact of the model, and that's related really to the application itself. If you are doing summarization, then you are doing, you know, you evaluate, you have metrics for evaluating summarization. If you are doing regression or classification or whatever you are doing, at the end of the day, there are metrics that correspond mostly to the application itself and what exactly you are expecting out of this model. So jumping back now to of course, you know, our beloved Tunisia, right? And how is this can help our beautiful small country, you know, thrive, right? And I see, I mean, I think one of the two things that made Tunisia like is the fact that our resources, human resources, are great, right? So for a small country like that. And the way we had our human resources great is because at least we had, and I hope we still have, a very good educational system and a very good healthcare system. We have great doctors, and we have, or at least we had, great teachers, right? So, and then how can we keep that? Especially, you know, and I think these models can help us improve our education, because education will be impacted all over the world. The educational system, I don't know if you saw some examples of Khan Academy and what they did with you know, with generative AI. It's awesome. I mean, if I'm a kid today, yeah, I feel so lucky to have that institution and that type of, like, having a tutor, a personal tutor, so developed to figure out my problems and my answers and guide me through my thinking and guide me through the answer. I mean, if that's really, I mean, I'm impressed. Also in healthcare, I think there is a lot to do. You know, our hospitals are overwhelmed in Tunisia. Our services, the quality of the services is degrading. So if we can do something about that and help, you know, patients get, you know, at least half of the service without going and in line and waiting, you know, for hours and hours, that will be, you know, personal and precision medicine and precision healthcare is the future, and we are very far away from that. Every one of us has someone sick in the family, and you know that all the medication today is given on very old statistical models that don't make any sense anymore. My mom has diabetes. When she goes to her doctor, she prescribes you know, a level of insulin injections, and she asked her to try it, and if it doesn't work, come back to me 3 months later, and I will adjust that dose. That doesn't work like that anymore. Like, you know, you have now to have, you know, very precise models, and generative AI and AI in general can help a lot in that.
I think we will go to the topic 4, and if we have other questions, we'll take them for sure. So the topic 4, it's about generative AI and how looks our future. The mysterious, the question, $1 milliard. Are we close from a true intelligence that will replace employee everywhere? I think Hassen start talking about that as well. And what are the risks that we should prevent?
I mean, sorry if I interrupt, but I would just like, you know, because I have to jump to another meeting. I'm really sorry. I think we are at, you know, at time with this. But let me quickly answer. I had this very interesting question answered, you know, like before, and I was thinking about it, right? You know, a lot of people are saying, you know, this thing will, everything we did so far is to create cars and technology to help human being always the super race. And maybe now with this technology, humans will not be the super race anymore. So I think the question, we come from a culture where we believe there is only one God, right? And we believe also that God cannot create anything that is bigger and greater and God, right? I mean, God created everything, but never bigger than him. And I believe from that perspective, it's philosophical. You don't have to, nobody has to agree with me, but from that perspective is humans can create great things, but they can never create something bigger than humans. So we created a car that can travel faster than a human. We created, whatever things, we can do better than humans, but we can never create an overall something that is bigger than humans. That's my perspective. So that's why, I can sleep at night being in this field, and I'm not worried about the future of my children and the children of my children. But yeah, that's my kind of
let me take the pleasure to interact with you on that. When I started doing my PhD years back, 2 decades now, after I finished, I was saying to myself, okay, and I attend a conference of John McCarthy, and he talked about which is the father of the AI, right? And he was talking about the fact that we took a kind of retard with AI because we didn't see long term. We see they see short term in a way, right? So when I come back and after a couple of years of research, I was saying to myself, I'm so happy to work on this domain, but I'm not happy. I'm so happy to don't be here when it will be what will be probably this super intelligence. I will not be here, okay? But again, what you are saying, I in a way, I agree with you with the fact that I don't think that we will have some kind of super intelligence, but the risk is that today this is a weapon that can be used, whether generative AI, whatever you want, okay, the exponential technology, let's put it all in the same bucket, can be used to harm and hurt people in the world. So that's why it's very important. And this is why in AI Exponential Thinker, we are democratizing AI. We are talking about AI ethics. We are here to make it as much as understood by everyone, not technically for everyone, but at least everyone, society, family, community, children need to understand it in a way to save their community, society, family, wherever. So it's just a point that, again, it's not about super intelligence. It's about what we have today can hurt and harm if it's used by some people who are not conscious or by purpose, they are doing it in the wrong sense. So I will stop here, but we will keep this discussion, amazing discussion. Hassan, if you wanna leave, don't hesitate. It was a pleasure. We will continue with others speakers and jump on this question for sure.
Thank you so much. I have to leave, but thank you so much. And yeah.
Thank you, Hassan, to contribute. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Hassan. Yeah, let me jump in and add one thing.
Please.
So I think, we entered a little bit into religious philosophy. So of course, God can create anything if he wills. That's all we know to answer kul shay. But as humans, can we create a technology that surpasses our intelligence? I think probably that's not the question to ask. And so maybe we can create things that are more sophisticated at specific applications, not generic. And then of course they can be used for good and for harmful things. But I think that's the common thing for any technology, airplanes, we use them to fly around the world, and also they have been used as war machines everywhere, right? There are specific things that are really built to hurt and harm, bombs and what have you. But there are also technology that is a little bit generic, and then it can be used by bad actors in different scenarios. And definitely, I think for these cases, there are international and national laws that control these things. I'm not I think calling for regulating AI too tough like everybody else is calling to, because probably I think that will limit what we can build in a near term. But also I think be careful, and also we need some watchful organization that watch over the actors, not the technology. Like, so let the technology develop in the labs and then in the research companies and what have you, but also like watch what people are doing for it, and then make the people accountable, not the technology itself.
I agree in a way with you, Amine, but again, it's about creating awareness. It's not about stopping AI or stopping this progress. Absolutely no. It's very important. It's bringing $billions to the economy worldwide, right? And probably it's coming in Africa more and more. So we are involved on that in different perspectives, whether in global or in Africa. But the point is, creating awareness is very important as well, because regulation is taking too much time, and it will never, and I assume what I'm saying, it will never be able to control all this exponential technology progress, which is very rapid today. This is my point, but it doesn't mean I'm working on this space, right? So my point is, we keep working, but we keep creating this awareness in the same time, because it's very important. So Rim and Asma, what do you think about that? Yeah. And Amine, if you want to say something, don't hesitate.
Go ahead, Asma.
I think AI experts in general have mixed opinions in terms of whether AI is a danger and will kill us one day, or whether we are still very far from this super intelligence and superpower. And I think it's sometimes good to remind or explain how this, for example, large language models work. They actually just predict the next word in a sequence of words or in a sentence, right? This is how they work. This is so it's a very easy concept that was used to train and make these large language models, but it worked very well. And also at the same time, it's very hard to predict the future, because we don't know whether we'll have a new training methods and new architectures that maybe will have another, will contribute to another leap in performance in a few years or in a few months. So, but I think what's at least we can be sure about is that we will see, I think, an impact, and will all areas of our, I think, daily life will benefit from this computational support, if we can say, of this generative AI models in all our areas, in all areas. Now, related to the risks, I think there are several different risks. Risk related to the training data that was used, risk related to the input and also output. So related to the training data, there is a risk of data exposure. So that's, I think, a lot of things can be done to handle that. Related to the input, so now we are using prompts, so natural language prompts that can be used to with this models. So people can use sensitive data, can use private codes, and that's, I think, another issue related to privacy and related to sensitive information. Related to the outputs now. So in text generation, for example, the outputs can have misinformation, can have bias, can have hallucinations. We talked about that. And we have also the deep fakes, so we can have very also realistic images and videos, and that can have serious problems. So we can, I think about risk related to having, this model being able to generate codes and maybe have cybersecurity issues and things like that. So I think there are several risks at all levels that require more guidelines in terms of, I think, for both users and developers, and maybe companies too. So having responsible guidelines on how to use these models safely, and then how also develop these models in terms of training data, and then to protect the privacy and also the user. So I think there is a lot that should be done also in terms of responsible AI, and hopefully we'll see. I agree with you. It won't maybe. It's a hard topic, but hopefully, I think with more discussions related to this topic, we can hopefully see more responsible usage of generative AI.
Rim?
Yeah, so let me revisit the question on whether we might be in danger. I think, of course, it's an ongoing debate worldwide, and I don't think there is a clear cut on that. But my 2 cents on this is that, and by the way, I'm a bit reluctant to agree on the fact that it's a simple technology in terms of the prediction. Of course, on a high level, I totally agree with you. That's how it works. But at the end, if I look at the huge jump, maybe good to mention, in 2004, I was in Carnegie Mellon University working on a machine translation project back then. And we used just language models back then, and it was more based on Bayesian methods. And I remember I was trying to bring in the Arabic language into that. But the reason why I'm bringing in this example is because back then in 2005, language models were there already, right? For machine translation as example. But what was not there, and which is there today, is this amazing, according to my point of view, amazing way of representation learning and all the attention-based contextualized understanding, which is a way of representing knowledge, right? I mean, we've been trying to do it symbolically, as I said at the beginning, through knowledge graphs and so on, but we didn't, or the semantic web and all those things, but we never really succeeded, right? So it never really flew. But now what we see is kind of happening. So I think if this is coupled with the embodied AI perspective, meaning that you allow the AI to learn in the embodiment of the real environment, that could be probably the next game changer in terms of getting closer to humans in that sense. But just to conclude on this, I think what is urgent now is that we in Tunisia, because we are interested in that specifically, that we try to install what's needed in terms of prevention of manipulation, because whether it's through wrong information or through the generative AI being used for manipulation in general, that's for me, it's a big risk, because we're more and more unable to differentiate what's fake from what's real. I mean, that has been the case already, but now it's, of course, they took it to another level. So for me, that's a real risk, especially if I think of less mature human beings, like children, for instance. For me, this is a big risk, and I would like to mention probably of hearing all those propaganda of new ideas seen in all the different schools in European countries or American countries, whether about gender discussion or other things. So for me, generative AI could be a very dangerous source of wrong information, manipulation, and fake information. That's one. And two, and that's the last point here, is for Tunisia, I feel that the fact that it's democratized, like access to coding now is really another level. Code Whisperer from AWS is for free. I don't know for Microsoft. I think I think for Microsoft you need to pay for that, right? It's a pay anyway. So what I'm saying is there are Copilot, exactly. But I think the Copilot, I think, is against fees, right? But anyway, so Code Whisperer for sure is for free. Maybe Asma, you can correct about the other side, but there are tools now that anyone could use, and that's already in itself could be really a game changer for younger populations that are trying to catch up with all what's happening. And next to that, of course, build some other things on top of AI, and most importantly, use it for education. I think the education point is where we can make a difference.
Okay, just as we are approaching to the end of this webinar, I want to take first questions from what jobs are threatened by Gen AI? And the second question is much more, if I can hear from Amine before he leaves, what are the skills that today, let's take one step back, right? And think about skills. Okay, what are the skills needed for the future? When I say future is now, right? The future is the present now. It's not anymore tomorrow. So can you just share some insight about that, and then we will make a roundtable with Asma and Rim.
Yeah. So basically, I think from skills perspective and job safety perspective, so skills definitely, since Gen AI is mostly software these days, so great software engineering skills at the basic level is still very, very important. So because these Gen AI models are just one component in a big system, so if you know how to do like software architecture and then big system design, that's going to be very, very valuable, because you can quickly build pipelines using these things that are available to you as a new building block. plus whatever skill is needed for your target domain, because this technology is very generic. Like if you are in healthcare or if you are in, a different industry, then just like you need to know also like the skills needed for that specific industry, because now you can apply end-to-end these things. So whether a job is safe or not, I think there isn't like, one rule to decide on like job safety. But I think a good metric would be like, okay, so if the job is about like taking knowledge and extracting it from an existing source and providing it to someone else, then probably that job is not safe. So because these gen models will be able to do it very effectively, and then will be able to extrapolate to new things that you as a person cannot handle. So I will not say like a professional job is not safe or a lawyer job is not safe. I think they can be augmented with these things. Like, so you can still go to the professor and they will go to Gen AI to get you a better answer for your specific case, or a lawyer can use it to maybe put a better case in court. Yeah, so these are, I think, the couple of answers I have here.
Thank you. Just about what are the jobs that are threatened? Actually, today it's not about generative AI only, but AI, technology, everything. It's creating new jobs. We will need other jobs that are not yet defined, right? Some of them start being defined in a way. Actually, product management years back, it was not existing, and then it's come. Scrum Master, Agility, whatever. I'm taking the ones that are here for 10 years now, right? So it's same on AI. It will have a lot of jobs created. And more than that, I was invited last Friday to inaugurate the tech center of Pont-et-Chaussée. And one of the questions coming from a research director from China, he asked the question, am I losing my jobs in the future? And he's old, right? So he said, it's not about me. It's just to know what are the different perspectives from your point of view. So I said something. So I explained for many details, right? From different perspectives. And at the end, I said, if we send our children to new education systems, they will not think about the job that exists today. They will create new jobs. They will create new enterprise, right? And so on. So still we are stick to this traditional education systems. That's why we think about job. But after probably 30, 40 years, no one will think about jobs, because we will create jobs all the times, every 5 years, 10 years, and so on. And those people who are the young generation need to understand what are the new skills needed to be able to embrace this future and create it, which is not the case today, unfortunately. So if we take one step back, don't think about job as today, because I'm sure it will not be this definitions after 25, 30 years. I'm sure about that. So thank you very much, Amine. I want to hear Asma and Rim about these two topics, jobs and skills, please.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I have to leave. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amine.
Bye.
So I agree with you, Lobna, and with Amine too. So I think AI will augment, will support, will help workers. But I think it will also replace some workers. So I think about all jobs related to content creation. I mean, 100%. It doesn't replace 100% of the employers, but some of them. So data creation, developers, right? We have now, we saw some like GitHub Copilot, or we have some models that can generate and write codes. So that I think they can replace some workers, some employees, but can also augment and help and support others. And they can also create, and AI will also create new opportunities, new jobs, right? Because we'll have always, with every technology, we'll have new challenges, and we'll have these new jobs that will also require more workers. In terms of skills, I think I agree with both of you in terms of like product design or product development. Also, I think related to machine learning. So when we say AI now, it's mainly machine learning. So I think knowing the basics of machine learning, and that's I think something that's important to have. So yeah, these are, I think, having, and it depends also on the domain. So if you're applying AI to the healthcare system, having some experience working with, for example, and understanding the needs in that specific area or sector. I think that's important to know too.
Yeah, fully agree about the fact that it will replace some jobs, some jobs for sure. And this is why I talk about the new skills of the future, because when you have those skills, critical thinking, exponential thinking, whatever, the list is long, right? For sure, you will not embrace the things as we do today. And this is the point. That's why I'm caring about this education system, and I'm worried about that, because we are sending our children to schools who don't prepare them to anything related to the future. So this is the main point. That's why I talk about that. But I agree with you. It will replace for sure a lot of jobs, but it will create other jobs that we don't know yet. That's why it's kind of ambiguous for people. And I understand it's confusing, right? So very quick, Rim, it's a pleasure again. What I didn't say that actually we said, but let me say it again. Thank you very much, Rim, because we think about the importance of doing these webinars about generative AI. At the beginning, we start thinking if we do it only on health, or in different domains, and then we said, okay, let's do it in different domains as a first, let's say, helicopter view, and then probably we'll do some more things more specific for sure. And this is why where we discussed with Rim. So Rim, it's over to you. It's kind of you are speaker and moderator with me as well today. So go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Lobna. Just a quick follow-up on what you said. I think it's a no-brainer that there will be new skills, that the landscape is changing, and that some people's jobs profiles are being already actually replaced. I remember one of my team members, Bangalore, where I was asking him for a new feature, and I quickly just created a code of myself, but one of the tools sent it to him, and he said, "Yeah, you will not need me anymore soon, right?" So this is not totally true, of course, but partially it's happening in the sense that the tasks are changing. So how they spend their time. Now that being said, I think the skills will be important in terms of critical thinking and validation. So I think we will need to be more and more critical to evaluate the outcome or the output of those models. We need the experts there still. And finally, I think the different profiles that we have now, whether it's a doctor, a medical doctor, or a teacher or whatever, I think they all need to upgrade themselves in terms of working hand in hand with AI. I think you cannot afford to stay aside. You need just to augment your function or your role or whatever with AI. And I think that's probably a good way to conclude this webinar. I'd like to thank you back, Lobna, and thank everyone who is here. Thank you also, of course, specifically for Sami and the RECONNECTT Association, the Tunisian AI Association. It was a real pleasure for me, and I hope it's not the last one.